Welcome to Home for Ambition number 14. Massive milestone every week that we don't give up. And yeah, super excited about being here. Drop in the chat where you're dialing in from. It's fun to hear. I know we got some folks that have been here listening to us every Wednesday for a while now. So excited to have you join. We have a packed agenda today that you're going to want to listen to all of it for, because by the end we are both going to defend American exceptionalism and let Jake defend communism, and that's going to go over super well. So excited to have that happen. Should we jump into our packed agenda?
Let's make it happen.
Let's do it.
Mike, do you want to give your announcement before we dive in too deep?
Yes. Yesterday was my last day at Leland. I will be leaving to start at Harvard Business School. We did an episode a few months ago about why MBAs are dumb, or maybe why they are not dumb. The good news is we now have Chandler. Chandler is or was my backfill and is going to be part of the podcast and taking over for me. And so I may not always be regular on every episode, but plan to pop in periodically to tell Jake that he's wrong about something and then hop off and go in.
Mike, we had such a touching goodbye conversation yesterday. I can't believe you're still interested in coming back and telling me I'm wrong. Just telling me I'm old. That was my
The nice thing, that the touching goodbye conversation, was that Jake told Mike that he never talks about him to his wife, which is the best compliment he could give someone. And so, Jake, you're so kind. I don't want to know how much your wife hears about me. But anyways, we're going to dive in. It's going to be great. Okay, I'll kick off the first topic. So I posted this today on LinkedIn. It's been kind of going around Twitter sphere and LinkedIn, which is that companies adopting AI the most, so companies that are spending a lot on AI or driving kind of AI intensity, are also adding the most headcount. So there's obviously been something that there's been kind of one side of the spectrum, which has said if you go all in on AI, you're gonna be able to replace your workforce, shrink your headcount, and be able to get more with less. And then there's the other side of the spectrum, which is if you adopt AI, you start to get more from your people, and thus each individual person on the team is more valuable, and you want to do more with more. So you're getting the impact of AI, plus you're getting each individual person accomplishing more with AI. Obviously, lots of correlation, causation within this, because companies that are succeeding and hiring more, are often in AI categories, or would be spending more on AI because they are succeeding, and more on people because they are succeeding. So it's hard to know and separate that data too much. But I've obviously been on record by saying that that last 1%, when each person is getting more and more productive, each person becomes more and more valuable. And I think that's a big reason why we won't see mass layoffs. But I think fall into the camp of, we are seeing massive job displacement. We see this on Leland, and I think that will continue to be true for specific jobs and industries. So I don't think I'm just falling the camp of AI is just going to be good for everyone in every industry. But we'd love to open it up and hear what you have to say.
I mean, my gut response when I look at this is the companies that are telling a strong AI story right now are the ones getting funded by external parties and investors. And, if you've got a bunch of money, cash inflowing, great. You can afford to hire new people and add roles, and you can growth it in a lot of ways. I think it's too early to really tell from this data set one way or another. I think there's some of the questions on the online community was this whole thing is kind of copium. It's too early. It makes you feel good, which is why it's getting clicks, and Ramp is pushing it and stuff. But I think I don't believe it yet. I don't think we know.
No, I totally believe it, and I think it's way dumber than it sounds. Which is, if there was anything I learned through the 2020 to 2023 era, it's that people have so much FOMO in missing a technology wave. Crypto, more than anyone being excited about the technology itself, it was I can't miss this next big thing, so I got to run at it and I got to go hard. And this to me feels like AI, more than any technology ever, is giving people FOMO of everyone's going to figure something out. I'm falling behind. I need to be doing something to keep up. So I got to go spend a bunch of money and chase these opportunities aggressively, because if I don't, someone else will, and then I'll be screwed. And so to me, that goes hand in hand. If you are investing really heavily in AI, it's powerful, and then your FOMO that someone else has figured something out that you haven't is also high. And so I actually don't think it's because Like, I don't think it's analytical at all. I think it's people just kind of like being dumb. Like, even if the hiring is bad hiring, it's happening.
Yeah, there's like this ecosystem momentum at like a market level that almost feels like I've got to match that at my company. And so adding heads, adding people, just being ambitious and aggressive in our roadmap just feels like, we're taking part in the inflection, whether the numbers reflect that or not. We'll see.
It's interesting that that same ramp thing had the org chart by different organizations and levels. And it's like, I think there's some agreement here of like, if you're investing a lot, you tend to be hiring more. I think that correlation makes sense. Whether you're actually getting those productivity gains and those are the reasons, I don't know. But I do think there is a transition happening. And this is a narrative that's been coming online right now, which is it's making the rounds. A VP of Xbox or something started this conversation the other night, and he said, engineering will eat the org chart. And it's a play off the famous quote of like, software will eat the world, which is like back in the day, it was like, oh, people are going to write software and SaaS and it's going to like wreck a lot of established players. And he was kind of right. Software kind of ate the world. Now maybe hardware is eating software, who knows? But I think the idea of engineers are going to be laid off because code is now cheap has been a prevalent one we've talked about a lot. And I think some people are actually seeing the opposite, where engineering is now just taking over entire org charts. You're forward deploying your engineer into every single department. And so you're actually net hiring more engineers as a result of code being cheaper than if you were hiring before. And so maybe some orgs are doing more engineering hires and some orgs are, you lay off some non-engineers because they're not as good system levels thinkers. You bring in an engineer, you embed them in the team, and it's like a cost or a headcount neutral or even a slight growth, but there's still going to be disruption. And I think engineering is eating the org chart right now.
Is that, let me ask you just a question on that. I think it's definitely happening. So I agree with that premise.
He's leaving the podcast. So
I guess my concern is like, is that a temporary phenomenon?
Yeah, I totally think it is. I think it's not going to last. Here's what's going to happen. Meta or someone is going to come in with your hire an AI employee that's actually awesome. And today it's like, you want an AI employee, go build it yourself. And so you need like an engineer to go build it. But in a world in which you say, no, I'm hiring a paid marketer AI, like an AI paid marketer, and like, I don't need my team to build that. This is basically what AWS did like for infrastructure. Like, you can now just purchase infrastructure as a service. And I think you'll get AI employees as a service. And then the need to build everything in-house will go down really significantly. And at that point, as dumb and trite as it sounds, I think distribution will matter. And so marketing will start to eat the org chart a lot.
Well, yeah, but I mean, marketing currently still matters a lot. And that's where this like breaks down. I don't think engineering's not eating the org chart. Sales still matters a ton. Everyone is becoming more of an engineer. I think that's
I think I disagree, though. I think it's not everyone a builder is beautiful, and I believe it. It's one of our values at Leland, and then I'm doing everything I can to enable that. But it turns out engineers are just better builders than other people. And it's like, sure, some of it is this latent sense we've built up, but an engineering mind is just really, really good at systems level thinking, and they're just better at building systems. And I think system building will eat the vast majority of just like passive domain knowers. And I think that engineering are going to be the people that are building those organizations. And an engineer who's a great systems level thinker is going to master the complexities of a marketing system faster than a marketer is going to master the complexities of an engineering technical system of any level of system.
You believe that? You believe that? I mean, it's basically like, I don't actually think it's an engineer or a marketer question. I think it's AI. Like, does AI get better at system building first, or does it get better at like distribution first? Because that ultimately, I think, decides who wins. And AI is going to get good at skill sets faster than other skill sets. And I don't know if I agree with you. I guess my bet would be AI gets pretty good at system building. And so I don't think you're right now.
I think system building is so much about like specific context that it's like, I think right now at Leland, we can pull all the context into one place. We're trying to do this right now. And I am not confident that the model knows how to make sense of it, no matter how smart it gets, without somebody helping translate back to why does any of this matter and what doesn't matter. I think there's still a layer of intuition that maybe I'm just skeptical.
That's intuition, though. That's intuition. That's not system building, right? Like, I think system building, a good example of AI getting better at this is prompting. we used to have to do this whole like one shot, double shot, whatever, like all these different like ways to trick the model. Now, like when you prompt it absolute garbage, meaning just notes, a random transcript, it actually breaks that down in a system for you. It doesn't
for some tasks, but if you don't, I still think actually prompting matters a lot. If I don't actually if I'm not clear on the goal that I'm actually trying to give to Claude, it'll output something, but it's often not what I'm actually looking for still. Maybe some things.
I disagree. I agree with you on the context problem. I don't think it's system. I don't think it's prompting though. I think it's context.
I will say I liked Mike's analogy of AWS because sure, you had less infrastructure, which is a specialization, and the explosion of cloud led to an explosion of software engineers. And it's like, the explosion of AI systems and like AI tools is just going to make it even more important that you have system level thinkers that can orchestrate it. And I do think this is the first time I've taken this bold of a stance because I think I'm becoming convinced. I think you will see more engineers just building more complex systems everywhere because they're just good at it. And they're going to pair it with someone who can master the domain. And like, you don't need a team of domain masters a lot of the time. You have one, and then engineers can learn the domain faster than complex systems can be built and maintained and mastered by non-technical thinkers.
No, I stand by two things. First one, I agree with John. AI is going to get better at the system levels thing. And then even when AI is not, because we can build more, there will be more solutions available of like today, like for example, at Leland, we had engineers build this whole like rate limiting software to help with this HubSpot integration for a feature we wanted to. In a world where HubSpot is moving 100 times faster than they are, you can just believe that HubSpot is going to support my goals better. And so it's like, no, I don't need engineers to build this. I just have infinite software, infinite solutions available to me. And like the missing part is I understand humans super well. And I know like good product intuition and distribution. And I think that's going to be increasingly more important.
Ooh, Pat brought some nuance into the chat. Pat, thank you for that. We're not nuance merchants over here. We'll find it in the middle. But shout out to Pat for
share it. For there's a lot of people listening that can't read.
That's true. Pat, engineers are building a better things. Definitely a potential controversial take. I generally agree, but I don't think it's useful to use the term engineer. That makes people feel othered. At the end of the day, AI has given us new tools for all types of work. People who quickly learn and adopt new tools are thriving. There's some other stuff, but I think that's true. I still think engineers are better and faster at adopting these new tools and instrumenting them together. And that example of inside of Leland, the complexity of any problem at scale is still way harder than people know they have to realize or deal with. And AI will get better, but engineers are still important. That's my final word. Anyone else can say final piece, but I've said what I wanted to say, and I stand by it.
I think we should go to the next topic, but I do think that to Pat's point, I think engineers have been good at being on the forefront, and so right now, like engineers are just so valuable because you're getting like it's still a little complicated to build and deploy things, and so there's just an advantage to people that are more technical. I don't know if that will always be the case because the stuff is going to get a lot more simple. Let's move to the topic of the week, which is Mike, you get to tee up the final topic, and then Jake gets to defend communism because we only have 12 minutes left, and July 4th is coming up, and I am personally proud to be an American and proud to be a capitalist, but I would love to hear how we want to celebrate this 250th anniversary. Can you hear Mike?
No, we lost Mike.
Oh, sorry about that. Okay, so here's what I want to talk about. Just last month, Idaho, which if you're not familiar, 37th most populated state, so one of the least populated states in the United States, just hit their first $1 trillion company. For context, there's not $1 trillion company in all of Europe, or really like outside of the US. I don't know if there's has a few. The US is kind of has the largest economy, and there's this broad term of American exceptionalism. I want to ask, like, is American exceptionalism true? And then if so, what are like the core principles behind it? Like, why is the US's economy so much better than other countries?
Capitalism. Jake, why don't you tell us why capitalism is not a good system?
All right, good. They're calling me comrade already in the company chat on Slack.
But first you got to tell us how did this joke even start?
So there was an excellent episode of Home for Ambition last week, which was not recorded and not on any podcast systems elsewhere, but it was a great one. If you weren't here live, you really missed out. We went a couple directions, and the conversation basically ended with me bringing up tax policy yet again, which we did a few months ago of me saying we should tax AI employees. And so I'm back with the taxes, and it's on my mind because it is directly related to American exceptionalism. The incentives here to build are better than anywhere else, for sure. Maybe that's the key to it all. But I was recently radicalized going on the Parade of Homes here in Utah, where you go and you look at rich people's homes. And I thought some of the homes were maybe a little too much. And I said, wait a minute, maybe we should be taxing the uber wealthy just a little bit more. Communism, I know. Hold on, don't run me out of town. And that just led to a lot of interesting conversations, which was obviously it's politically charged. Everyone has opinions. Should they be taxed more? Should they not be taxed more? The conversation I thought was the most interesting is that people have kind of given up on the idea that like you can't even tax people too more. The rich are too sophisticated. There's no way to successfully tax them because they've got armies of accountants, they've got armies of LLCs and shielding and tax loopholes and all of these things. And I said, if Mythos is smart enough to hack all our national security systems in like 20 minutes or whatever it is we're being told it did, AI should be smart enough to actually figure out how to tax the rich at an appropriate level without the loopholes. And it's not crazy for me to be like, all right, we have to have faith that the system can actually work. And if AI can't solve the complexity of our own tax system to enforce whatever the rules are, then like, I don't know, maybe AI is not going to be what we hope it can be. And that was my framing. How much should we tax them? I don't know. Maybe
please stop subjecting our listeners to this spiel. All right. The goal that Pat shared was to not get John riled up today. And this is the wrong topic to do it. So I'm sorry, Pat. Everything you just said was wrong in every possible way. And I'm going to tell you why. So
let's hear it.
The reason you can't mythos your way to a perfect tax system is because you can just leave, right? So you start there, right? So let's say we have this perfect tax system. I'll just move. So we'll start there. Second of all, communism is, well, I listened to this podcast the other day with Travis Kalanick, the former CEO of Uber, and he said that communism is in all of us. And I thought that was a really interesting way to frame it, which is to say the natural person, the natural man is lazy and envious and wants what others have. And I think that's true, right? Like, I think we would all love to sit back and say, the reason I don't have one of these amazing homes is because the crumble guys sold so many cookies and screwed me. So my solution is not to go be innovative and start something as big as that guy, which I'm perfectly capable of doing and actually went to his same undergraduate program and have largely the same connections and situation. Instead, I just want to take money from him, which is actually a human level feeling that I think many of us feel. The problem, I was playing golf with a friend and the other day, and he said, I've always been a capitalist, but then I heard the thing that was my wealth is closer to Jeff Bezos than Jeff Bezos is to Elon Musk. And that's what really turned me off and made me feel like I needed to tax the Elons. And I think that's just that is like propaganda. That is propaganda because nothing, like, think about everything that Elon is not a human I look up to. He's not a human that I want to be. But if there's anyone that deserves to have the amount of wealth that he has, it's the guy that's like sacrificed everything to build rockets and like 50 different companies and done more for climate change than any climate activist on the planet, and created so much value and so many jobs, and nothing that he's done is something that we could not do too. So that's the problem. And then I don't think you don't solve your problems by taxes, because how good at deploying capital are our politicians, right? That doesn't solve anyone's problems except push all of our innovators to another country.
Yeah.
So if we want to save American exceptionalism, then please do not do this.
I think you've fallen for a couple traps, John. And I think one of them is the idea that the incentives don't exist if the rules are fairly applied, which is obviously doesn't make any sense. Tax rules should be fairly applied at all levels. And the wealthy have mechanisms and capital to avoid and manipulate the rules. And I think AI can just fairly apply the rules. And I think everyone would agree rules should fairly apply to everybody. And contributing your taxes is a patriotic thing to do, to which I do every year to a great amount. And I would hope that AI can solve people who are trying to manipulate the rules via complexity and just imply fairness.
I agree with that. Yeah, I'm not saying they shouldn't pay taxes. I'm just saying, we know what the billionaire tax did to California, which was every billionaire was just going to leave. And because turns out there's like other great places to live outside of California.
Yeah. And so I think the other aspect of it, and this is should we tax them more? Maybe. And I think this is where we could disagree, and a lot of people do. I would, instead of like saying, let's take more from them, I would try to frame it as like, let's give them more incentives to spread more of that around. You can clearly still have $500 billion as Elon Musk and have better incentives where you're like, well, actually, I can make 500 other billionaires, and there's like giant tax savings for everyone involved by doing that. And I think there's a ground in there that's not quite communism.
I think there's incentives are interesting. I think that's fair.
What do you,
Mike Chandler, what do you guys think?
So I'm very anti. I generally I think I agree more with John in that taxing income at a certain level like just doesn't like I don't believe the government should have more of Elon's money. I don't think that they will do anything helpful with that money. I do think there's more interesting like usage based taxes like hey, if you're going to build a 70,000 square foot house, like maybe you can justify like a higher percentage property tax on that in that it's like that's a whole neighborhood right there, like prime real estate that other people can't have. To me, it's more of like how much of this is zero sum versus not zero sum. And like the zero sum stuff, like you do need to be careful about. And not all things are.
Most things are not though. And I think that's where people this is the trap of communism, zero sum thinking. That is the trap of it, which is because Elon has more than me, I am worse off, which is exactly the trap.
Yeah,
it's wrong.
For sure.
Yeah.
And I generally agree. The part I want to emphasize is, and this goes to the philosophical question of like, should billionaires or trillionaires even exist in the first place? And what I believe is any meaningful technology usually does not make financial sense to invest in. Like building self-driving cars is going to be a money pit forever. And so unless you are a Google-like organization that just has infinite capital, you would never invest in it. And Elon is actually the perfect example of this. Like he made a ton of money with PayPal. So what did he do? Like, I want to go start a rocket company. The average person would never start a rocket company because that is like just a money pit. It's like a financial nightmare to go into. And so you look at like where have the most interesting technologies come from? And this actually to me is the heart of American exceptionalism. It is like a place in which you can invest in things that don't make sense. Frankly, Midjourney is another perfect example of this. Like you had this company, they had this thing that was working really well. They had a bunch of extra cash. So they said, we're going to chase a problem that doesn't make financial sense to invest in, but we think is important. And we'll throw a bunch of money away. And if it does, it will be incredible.
I think just kind of ending as we come up on time here on this idea of patriotism and what makes America so special. Like, why is it that we're even having this discussion here in the United States, talking about companies that are all here in the United States? I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts. I think for me, there's something about the inspiration of just being close, proximity to people who are building. I mean, that's why Silicon Valley became Silicon Valley, is because of the concentration. That's why San Francisco and New York are largely the two, places where there's the most amount of venture capital and the most amount of startups that are creating economic value. I think there's something about the flywheel of America being this place that however we got here, whether you trace it back to our roots of independence or somehow somewhere after that, I think the culture of building and creating and carving your own destiny is something that I think is special to America. I think even like building something and not having it be $1 trillion company. Like I built a company and it didn't turn into, $1 billion unicorn. I think there's something about that entrepreneurial spirit and energy that is like sacred here.
I totally agree. I think it's a great note to close on. And I agree. I think it's protection of that like pursuit of happiness, right? The pursuit of building something that you want to build, how you want to build it, with who you want to build, that is a sacred and special thing. And aggressively defending opportunity and not necessarily the outcome is, I think, what's made America great, and I hope continues to.
Yeah, I would just my 2 cents on that to wrap up is I think as long as people believe that like their effort and their dreams and they can go do these things and like the outcomes and the rules and the system is all fair, then like that's all lined up. And I think that's true here more than anywhere else. And I get worried when people doubt that they can do it. And I think this is home for ambition. And in some ways, America is built on ambition, and we all are very interested in protecting ambition in everyone.
Love it. Mike, any final words before you go off to get $200,000 in debt?
No, just
good thing you're in America because you might be able to pay it back.
That's true. Or bummer I'm in America because it would have been free elsewhere.
Wait for next time.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Take care. See you all.